They've done a really nice study with rats whereby they basically have a super physiological level of testosterone and then they knock out the androgen receptor within the liver and show that when they induce a level of damage to the liver, the ones that have the androgen receptor knocked out allow the stem cells in to repair the insult to the liver, where the ones with androgen receptor activation don't see as much of an improvement to tissue regeneration. It's important to track the liver enzymes, especially with like contest prep, etc. Probably because, and a lot of people misunderstand what I've said before, so I think it's good to clarify this. The animal research suggests that when the androgen receptor is activated within the liver, the bone-derived mesenchymal stem cells cannot infiltrate the liver. So they've done a really nice study with rats whereby they basically have a super physiological level of testosterone and then they knock out the androgen receptor within the liver and show that when they induce a level of damage to the liver, the ones that have the androgen receptor knocked out allow the stem cells in to repair the insult to the liver, where the ones with androgen receptor activation don't see as much of an improvement to tissue regeneration. And that was where my hypothesis is that if you are running chronic super physiological levels of androgens, if that research from animals does apply to humans and you're running toxic oral cycles to speak, where you're creating liver inflammation, you're creating stress on the liver cells, and you're still cruising in a super physiological level, the inflammation you've created at the liver, you're stopping that, I guess, repair process or the infiltration of the stem cells. And that potentially is where I think maybe that link of hepatic carcinoma comes from. What we see in the case reports of guys developing liver cancer is because they blocked that infiltration of stem cells.
Right.
Does that happen all throughout the body? There's no other evidence to say that. So it's not blocking stem cells of everywhere in the body, but it is very well postulate that if it does occur in the liver, there is probably some potential of other stem cell infiltrations being interfered with.
It enters, so they enter the inflammatory cells in the hepatic tissue, and they cause hepatic cell growth as well, like you're saying, through the androgen receptor. We don't see that in other parts of the body.
No, and that's why you see liver weight usually goes up in these Hirschberger bioassay studies with the steroids in rat models, where liver weight significantly increases. And that is proven with most steroids. Now, I will also say that I've had many clients that do stem cells, and the large majority of the stem cell clinic, regardless of what kind of stem cells they inject, always recommend the client to come off steroids completely for the duration that, the treatment takes place. And it could be a couple of weeks, depending on the stem cell, or at least a couple of days before the stem cell treatment. Depends if it's systemic or localized, because a lot of clinics offer the systemic stem cell treatment, right? It goes intravenous with all kinds of other treatment options. And what they do is upregulate mitochondrial biogenesis with SS31 and some other mitochondrial peptides, administer the stem cells, all while you're basically androgen deficient.
Yep.
And that seems to have a good outcome.
But this is why, Dean and I talked about this, I think, in a previous video. This is why it's important to blast and cruise.
Right.
This is what the cruise below super physiological amounts are needed for, so the stem cells can actually go to the liver and help it repair.
Yeah, regenerate and heal the damage.
If someone's on TRT and they blast, it's not like you're going on a cruise, so you're recovering. What are you recovering? You shut down anyway. It's just so the stem cells can do their job.
Right.
Because otherwise they get that pluripotent amount of stem cells. The ones that are vague, that can go anywhere, are just committed to the muscle line from the androgens.
And how long would you suggest the cruising period? And we're talking about like super physiological levels or low, right? Just 800, 900 nanograms per deciliter.
I mean, what's the safest way is where time on equals time off, right?
And even then, I've argued that super physiological level could be dictated off your genetic makeup. So if you were unfortunate and you have low testosterone naturally, like 350, 300 nanogram per deciliter, and you're running TRT at 800 nanogram per deciliter, in theory, depending on how your genetics change from the exposure to the androgens over time and epigenetic control, technically that TRT dose versus where you sat naturally could in theory be super physiological. So even going on your TRT health phase could have that effect. So you're in a position of like you see there with the stem cell clinics where you have to come off everything, and that's to ensure that it might suck, you might be in a hypergonadal state, but it's allowing the stem cells to infiltrate, take residency, I guess mature, and then you can influence their biology with hormone optimization once they've taken residency. So it's fascinating. Might explain why some stem cells fail, because they don't take that aspect seriously.
Yeah. Or you go back to the gym too fast and you create localized inflammation, which also damages or prevents the stem cells from taking residency. Right? A lot of people are like, I'm going to go to the gym again, and then surgery or treatment failed because the body's just too stressed from the workout.
And super physiological amounts of testosterone is not just defined by the blood level, right? Kind of what Dean was doing. That's where the 300 milligram and above becomes super physiological, because that's the time that there's a body response that's greater than the body can naturally do, right? And 250 and under, that's why that's generally the TRT range, because even if your nanogram per deciliter is 2000, you're probably not getting much more of a response to the androgen receptor than you would from your natural hormones, right? That's why you can't just look at the blood level and determine super physiological versus not.
Yeah, it might just be better to do an HCG protocol or come off completely. I mean, it's not the end of the world. I've come off many times. And then you're androgen deficient for a while. Well, if that makes your stem cells work better, it's 3 months. It's even in 3 months androgen deficiency. It's okay. It sucks, but if it allows you to heal.
And if you're still lifting,
it's a trade-off.
You're not going to lose much muscle.
No.
Right?
No. Lifting sucks, though, on androgen deficiency.
No, I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm just saying, but the guys that tend to lose, the guys that gain a bunch when they blast and then lose a bunch when they cruise, it's because they're training like a lunatic when they're on drugs, and then they can't maintain that when they're not. And so the stimulus from exercise is reduced. So then the muscle mass is reduced. But if you train the same, whether you're on or off, like blast or cruise or whatever, then the muscle mass should be maintained.
Yeah.
That's right. You can lose some fluid and some inflammation when you come off, but you shouldn't see these big drops.
No, you shouldn't.
But when you see the guys that blow up on a cycle and then shrivel up and blow,
the Lavroni style. You're an alcoholic off cycle, and then then train your balls off on cycle and take all the anadrol that you can find. Yeah.